welcome to Bharata First. You're watching Big Picture with me, Frank Razum Pereira. And to celebrate India's fine performance at the Olympics and Independence Day, we at Bharata First have come up with an exciting offer for the Knowledge Center. Bharata First Knowledge Center is a one-stop destination for your competitive exams preparation. Go to kc.bharatafirst.com for more details. Use the coupon code FREEDOM30 for a great discount. Hundreds are thoroughly enjoying this whole new learning experience. Make sure that you don't miss out. Be a part of this amazing journey today. Also, please like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and then all notifications, and do share the content as well. You can subscribe to our newsletter for some incisive content. The Bharata First team runs several quizzes. Please participate in them. If you like our content, do keep it alive by making a small contribution. All this information, along with some must-see recommendations, are in the description of the video. Please go through it. And now on to the discussion. The UN Security Council, currently being presided over by India, on Monday unanimously adopted a presidential statement on maritime security that recognized the importance of enhancing international and regional cooperation to counter threats to maritime safety and security. Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a high-level open debate on maritime security attended virtually by Russian President Vladimir Putin, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Chief of Cabinet of the Secretary General, President of Kenya, and Prime Minister of Vietnam. The UNSC unanimously adopted the presidential statement, the first such presidential statement of the Council on maritime security. In this edition of Big Picture, we will analyze the issue of maritime security and cooperation. Joining me on the program today are Manjeev Puri, former ambassador, Abhijit Singh, Head Maritime Policy Initiative Observer Research Foundation, and Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha, maritime security expert. All right, Admiral, let me start the program with you first. Let's first try and understand and analyze this issue of maritime security and cooperation and how it has become, all that more important in recent times.
Well, thank you, Frank, for getting me on your program. I always look forward to this. Even though oceans are very vast, Frank, if one look at the map or chart, as the naval guys call it, you'll find that it is virtually impossible to monitor the entire world sea, which is almost 2/3 is the sea in the whole globe, and therefore no one country can possibly ensure the free passage to all the countries, and that's why we say that sea is for everyone, and global commons are supposed to use it. Now, if global commons are supposed to use it, then whatever are the non-traditional threats, in a minute I will mention about that. Whatever are the non-traditional threats, it means that everybody must come together to fight it out. I mean, that's a very simple sort of logic which the Honorable Prime Minister has been actually pointing at. Well, it has got its own, collateral stuff which probably will emerge as we go along. I'm sure Abhijit will, highlight that. The point is that more the business, more are the chances of is getting scuttled by the undesirable elements, as they call it, a non-state actor. But I personally don't believe in this word non-state actor. Every actor is a state actor or a state-sponsored actor. There's nothing like a non-state actor. They do have a state. It's just that we have to go deep into it and you will find the state. The point is that if we can't do it together, then what is it that we are required to do? And therefore, cooperative mechanism is very important. Otherwise, India would not have opened up the Indian Ocean Fusion Center to 40 countries now. Day before yesterday, one of the serving officers told me that it is 40 countries. We started off and it was just about 18, then 28, then 40, and about 5 or 6 countries representatives are here. So if we know who are the lawful user of the sea, if we know their numbers, we know where they are, and we put it on a sort of database of what we call maritime domain awareness, then or you can see them. Or if you got somebody who doesn't have that number, but yet he's painting on your radar in your satellite or somebody is reporting, then you shadow that fellow for a long time. maybe then you send your assets, our aircraft, first aircraft, then maybe ship, as he comes closer, and then you go and intercept this fellow and say, who are you? Hey, hello, where is your AIS? Why aren't you switching it on? Many times people actually do a little bit of spoofing. They switch off or they put some other AIS number. It is important because it actually impacts the free passage in the sea layers of communication, and therefore it can impact the trade, it can impact the energy security, and it can obviously give rise to free passage to the terrorists who are using this more often than before. That is because sea is open. There are regulations are very loose, if I may say so. There aren't very strict regulations like you have on land because you don't have a border. It's open to everybody. So I would begin with by saying that, and maybe other speakers can have a go. Prasoon, back to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, Abhijit, let me come to you now. Let's talk about this aspect of security and the regulations being loose, like the admiral has just pointed out. Up until a few years ago, we heard a lot about the Somali pirates and everything that was happening in the Western Indian Ocean. Of late, we aren't hearing too much about that. How serious are the threats in the oceans?
Frank, let me begin by saying that the challenges at sea are actually quite well known, in a sense that this is not a new phenomena that we're seeing. Piracy has been around for many, many years. And of late, what we've seen is that the threats at sea are morphing into taking different forms. And it's become very hard to fight these challenges for any nation by itself. So what you need is, as Admiral Sinha rightly pointed out, what you need is cooperation. And I'd say that cooperation really is the currency of maritime diplomacy. And any talk that we have of this kind, the need for international cooperation always comes up, and it's very well known that that's the way forward. But there's an interesting subtext to this discussion, which is that the manner in which the challenges are evolving at sea, and be it piracy or terrorism that the Prime Minister spoke about at length, actually, or it is the challenge of IUU fishing, Chinese gray zone operations, militia operations in the South China Sea. All of that points to the fact that we're entering an era of great uncertainty, and what some would say is a more unpredictable world. And for this world, you need to be ready to adapt to new risks and new threats. So I think the subtext of what India was saying, and for that matter, what was being debated yesterday, was that we're entering into an era where no country will be able to play the lone ranger. It's not like any one navy will be able to go and combat all threats. We'll have to do things together. And also the fact that this is a post-COVID world, so that means we're also entering in a phase of fiscal stringency. There will be limited funds at our disposal to do what needs to be done at sea, and we absolutely need to get our act together and learn how to cooperate at sea. I would say that seemingly this was about non-traditional security issues, and the Prime Minister needs to be commended for putting that side of security front and center. Usually what we get to discuss is the China challenge, Chinese operations in the Indian Ocean and the Pacific. This was really not about that. But the fact that the Chinese actually objected to some part of the concept note, as also they sent a junior level functionary, there was a sense, an underlying tension, which seemed to portray an image that China has concerns about the fact that non-traditional security is being mentioned as a proxy reference to what the Chinese are doing at sea. So the Chinese actually objected to something like IUU fishing, and it is no happenstance that China's fishing fleets are known to rampantly, fish in the waters of Asia, Africa, South America. So perhaps that is something that they did not like. So I would say that Yeah, although this was really about non-traditional security, it was about open sea lanes, preserving access, tackling pirates and drug traffickers, human traffickers, etc. But it did have a traditional undercurrent, and the traditional undercurrent was that there are state actors too that are placing hurdles in the legitimate users of the seas, as the Prime Minister put it, this expression he used, that the legitimate users of the seas is being hampered by certain actors. These could be non-state actors, but as someone that tries to read the subscript, I would say that his reference perhaps also was to China, because one of the rules that he's mentioned in that 5-point program is peaceful resolution of disputes, open access, free trade, which is all reference to what the Chinese are doing. So I would say that this was a mix of both traditional and non-traditional.
Absolutely. Ambassador, coming to you now, you've heard both the, security experts speak on this particular issue. Let's hear your thoughts as a diplomat, and from a diplomatic point of view, what is the level of cooperation that takes place really in the maritime domain, and can we expect more?
Frank, thank you very much, and I'm very delighted to be here. So let me say something general first. There's a very well-known author called Robert Kaplan, who's written several books underlying the fact that geography actually determines also your power play and its abilities. Yeah. India is perhaps the only country which gives its name to an ocean. Let's understand that, and let's understand the subcontinent, the way it is structured. So sea is integral to us, our ethos, the way we do things. That we haven't been able to utilize it particularly well in the last several, let's say 5, 6, 7 decades is a different matter. But as we grow economically, its importance will arise, many things will. Now, I think Abhijit is absolutely right when he mentions that the subtext was known to everyone. It's not that it's not known to people. But you also have to play some games in the international politics. And the others played an equally good game. Let me tell you, if we got the presidential statement issued after the Security Council meeting, it wasn't that the others didn't get anything. In a little while, it became clear to the world what the others got. They are the bosses of the show. Let us understand that if we got even the meeting, it wasn't as reported in the newspaper that they buckled. Nobody buckles. But it's all right. You got something that you wanted in that you gave in somewhere else. It's fine. These things are par for the course. Nothing wrong with it. I am glad we raised the issue of maritime security. Let me tell you, the Security Council has debated issues of maritime security in the past. In recent times, piracy of the coast of Somalia has been the most important one, and India has played yeoman service there. The Indian Navy, along with other navies, etc. Today, the subtextual issues really are access issues. Admiral Saab here raised the issue of non-state actors. If I may facetiously mention, what about an oil company, sir, which has resulted in the United States not being a state party to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which even our statement recognizes as the fulcrum of the way the law of the sea should be modified in the framework. So, these are very complex issues. There are a lot of business interests also which are involved. It's not just these pirates and terrorists. These can be easily taken care of. The biggest issues are business, unhindered access. And look, where we are located, there are global choke points. There is no choke point in the Atlantic Ocean in that sense of the term. There's hardly any choke point when you look east of the Pacific Ocean or west from the United States of America. What is it? But in the Indian Ocean, there are choke points, and we are seeing global contestation. Abhijit has mentioned the country. I don't think anybody is here who doesn't understand what exactly is going on. For India, this is particularly important. I want to make a simple point. Countries serve on the Security Council for a variety of reasons. But when countries like India and other major emerging powers who want to be on the high table serve there, the purpose is to be there, make their presence felt, and do something which is for global good. The presidency is a unique opportunity which allows you to lead this subject for a particular point of view. For us, maritime security is certainly important. There's no doubt. We did it rather well We've scored our points. It's all right. There are some trade-offs. That's par for the course. That's not an issue. And therefore, I am glad that we raised the subject. It's been done before. We have chaired the UN Committee on Piracy off the coast of Somalia. In fact, I myself chaired the committee. But bringing it in a holistic, comprehensive manner is a good idea. I must say, I would not have said one or two things that were said, but that's, Manjeev Puri, an old-fashioned diplomat who believes that the Security Council's domain must be restricted to simply traditional ideas, international peace and security, terrorism, trafficking, etc. They're all crimes. That's not an issue. But I would leave it at that. I think it's a good idea that we brought it forward. It did us proud. It was very good. The Honorable Prime Minister chairing it. Look, we are saying it happened for the first time. Virtual summits also have their advantage. I think that's something you should understand. Otherwise, the only time heads of state and government can be present is in September when they go for the UN General Assembly. This allowed that to happen. But please mark something else. It wasn't that India's Prime Minister was there. President Putin was there. The African Union was represented. The Vietnamese were there. And there were lots of foreign ministers there. This is the important thing. There is a recognition that this is a country which has global stakeholding. And so, therefore, both the subject as well as the process that we did, made sense and has been positive as far as we are concerned.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Admiral, let's talk about some of the challenges really as far as maritime cooperation is concerned from a security standpoint.
Well, the first challenge is that, you have to have convergence of ideas and convergence of understanding what we want. And unless you have convergence, those countries are not going to sort of become part of any kind of cooperative mechanism that you want to have. That is number one. Secondly, all the democracies particularly, they have been harping on this free and open sea. And there are countries who don't follow it. And therefore, that country becomes a bad boy. And then you come together and have an organization. And you will find that one of the reasons why Indo-Pacific is inclusive, what the Prime Minister has been saying, this is one big reason that he doesn't want to single out anybody. The reason that the Quad has not been linked yet, though it is mostly that on paper, if you like, with any sort of military cooperative mechanism, is this, that we want to tell the world that, come on, we only want you to follow the UNCLOS, the United Nations Convention on the Sea. It's another matter that America has not ratified it. But the fact is that he is also following UNCLOS to a large extent, except for one or two provisions, and which is about the territorial water. So, point is that you have a cooperative mechanism with like-minded countries whose ideas converge. And what is that idea? Idea is free and open sea, following the UNCLOS. Now, these two form the fundamental of any cooperative mechanism the democracies are talking about. But as Ambassador and both Abhijit pointed out, they all have an underlying subtext. It will happen. Why should not be there when you know that the other country who's sort of not following legal sort of processes, giving two hoots to those legal judgments which are given, and you want to tell him that, look, this will not do. So large number of countries, when they come together and they say, hey, come on, this is not on. So when there are large number of countries, then even the country which is showing some belligerence, they better be careful. So that is number one. So I think that cooperative mechanism is very much, one is on a global basis, then there is a regional basis, then you have a sub-regional basis. So the oceans are very large. You cannot have, as I said, there is no one country which can look after. So cooperative mechanism with the countries who can come together and do it at least in their own adjacent seas. And I look at, in many of your programs in your earlier avatar, I've been saying that I look at Indo-Pacific in three very different segments. One is the Indian Ocean region, one is the South China Sea and that part of the Pacific so-called, and then you're talking about the Western Pacific. And these three, if you look at the Indo-Pacific construct or the Quad construct, the four countries who are there, they actually belong to these different sections. And one section where US is omnipresent, and if Japan doesn't want to take offensive action all by itself, then the US is going to be present. India is quite happy for the time being to do its own stuff because it knows that it is not going to be a cooperative mechanism of fighting the war as far as the land issue is concerned. But yes, because you have an intelligence sharing arrangement, you will share the intelligence. So cooperative mechanism at sea actually is a result of large number of other cooperative arrangements that you are already in. It is not that suddenly you come in a quad Indo-Pacific and then say no, we are friends. No, it has taken so many years for us to get on board the American or the US idea of this mechanism. It has taken us so many years. But now we understand that yes, there are a lot of good things which can happen. And therefore, we're trying to get those good things also as part of this cooperative mechanism. So I think that broadly, the way I look at it, broadly, this is what it is.
Absolutely. Abhijit Singh, coming back to you now, the Admiral is talking about cooperative mechanisms. What are the mechanisms that are already in place? Are traditional, navies losing their ground, especially in the Indian Ocean? And are we seeing the emergence of countries like India, and with India getting closer to, say, for instance, France? Do you believe that this is a domain that we can fully take care of going forward?
Frank, I believe partnerships are important, and partnerships are going to get us where we want to be. But before I tackle the partnership question, I'd like to just sort of loop into this interesting, comment that the Admiral has actually made in his previous comments. And what I think when it comes to non-traditional challenges that all of us have spoken about, it's often said that there are tame challenges and there are wicked challenges, as the late Sam Bateman used to put it. The tame challenges are the ones where there is a degree of convergence on what the problem is. And there's also a degree of correspondence on what the solutions to that problem should be. So for instance, when it comes to an area like piracy, there was this general understanding that there's one way in which the problem should be looked at, and really that's also the way in which it should be sought to be solved. But then there are wicked challenges where there is very little agreement. For instance, just the issue of freedom of navigation. How do you interpret the UNCLOS? Many countries have different interpretations of UNCLOS, and there's just this year, a couple of months back, there was this US naval FONOP that happened, the Freedom of Navigation Patrol near our waters, where this issue was again brought to the fore that we actually don't agree with the US's interpretation of UNCLOS and the manner in which it deploys its warships in the EEZs, and for that matter, our interpretation is quite similar to China's interpretation of what access should be. So the point I'm trying to get to is that these wicked areas are very well known to the international community, and it's great to have a forum in which all of these issues can be holistically discussed. But the fact is that when it comes to governance and when it comes to access, there are a set of problems that we are yet to properly tackle. One of them is that a lot of countries actually haven't signed up to or ratified the conventions and the protocols that the UN has put in place, and the UNCLOS is only one of them. There is a convention for trafficking. There is one for smuggling. Migrants smuggling. The way in which migrants move from one country to another. There's no agreement on how countries should try and tackle that problem. But I think more importantly, a lot of countries don't have the domestic legislations that are, or have domestic legislations that are not quite in line with what the international convention should be. And there is no agreement on what should happen there. So if you look at countries like, say Indonesia or Malaysia, and the problems that they are facing with regard to China in the South China Sea, there is a difference in the way China looks at those issues of access within the 9-dash line from these countries. And if you talk about the Indian Ocean, also the manner in which China deploys its warships in the EEZs of some countries. Once India's own EEZs, we had a Chinese ship it will show you that that there are problems in the way different countries interpret these rules. So I would say that partnerships are key, but there also has to be a degree of agreement on how we are going to legally approach these problems. And until that does not get resolved, I don't think there can be any concrete movement forward. We've got to acknowledge that the tame challenges will be easy to solve, but the wicked challenges are the ones that we should focus our real energies on.
Absolutely. Ambassador, let's talk about India's role really in all of this. And when we're talking about maritime security and maritime cooperation, can India take the lead? Can India at least, be a driving force in the Indian Ocean region?
Frank, I think we should be very clear that we have a vested interest in that. And that is why this subject matter was one of the subjects that India is taking up during its presidency of the Security Council. So the fact that it is not only our geography, but our economics makes it an imperative thing that we have to be an engaged stakeholder. Now, leadership on a global matter, and you have, of course, reduced it to a regional area, the Indian Ocean, and we've done our bits there, isn't it? The Indian Ocean Rim Association, for example. We've done quite a lot in this particular area. But when we spread out and go beyond that, then, we are talking about global power plays, etc. And, we should understand and accept that, there are some issues which are, let me put it very simply in terms of our capacities and capabilities. We have performed very well, let me say, from the west of the Malacca Straits all the way up to the coast of Africa. That's a kind of domain which the Indian Navy is certainly the largest, biggest player. And many people ask, why are you letting others come? In the long time back, we used to stop that. This whole idea of partnerships, etc., are evolving subjects. Governments take a view on the subject and see, which is the way these things are happening. Look, in my understanding, degree of collaboration, partnership is extremely important. The wicked ideas which Abhijit mentioned to him, they are essentially of the ideas of global power play. They are going to become problematic. UNCLOS provides a very nice, good, big, broad framework. But if the biggest player in the world is not a state party, where are you going to have governance? In fact, you will find that the ones with whom you are having contestation, you and them are on the same platform everywhere. And this will happen everywhere in the world. Let me leave aside the Security Council issue. Let me take climate change or anything. You will find that you will be with them. That is the nature of the game. This contestation is a slightly different matter. This is the question of the previous haves versus the new haves coming about. So this is bound to happen. In my opinion, it is particularly important that India remain not just engaged, but at the top of the engagement ladder in terms of maritime security, especially in the Indian Ocean region. And I define Indian Ocean the way Admiral Saab defined the Indian Ocean. That is particularly important. As our abilities increase, you can certainly go further. It's a very capital-intensive business. Let's also understand that. Somebody mentioned France. They hardly have any naval fleet worth talking about. One aircraft carrier goes somewhere and that's the end of the matter. I mean, the Brits are similarly like that. These are just talk shops. I mean, the reality of the world is that we are really left with basically 3 to 4 players in the world. The Chinese, the Russians, India to some extent in our region, and the United States. There really is. The rest of them are really just about that much. And only when they come together do they really form something. So I completely agree with you. We must be on top of it because it is relevant to us. It is in our vested interest and a matter of great interest to us, not only for our territorial and our overall sovereignty and our civilizational links, but for our economics.
Absolutely. All right, gentlemen, it's time to get quick closing comments on the best way forward, starting first with you, Admiral.
I think it's a very good beginning that the Prime Minister has put this across into the United Nations Security Council, right in front of the world, as you mentioned, and the ambassador was talking about, that it is our vested interest, but you must tell the world that my interest is everybody's interest. It is not something which I am doing only for myself. I am doing it for global commons because everybody uses the sea. The fact that India has actually put it on a plate of the globe, I think that itself shows the leadership as far as the diplomacy is concerned. It's a big leadership initiative which the Prime Minister has taken. He will make it a sort of global discussion, and all these points, the 5 principles that he has talked about, you will see that it will be threadbare. The only hurdle that I see in the legal issue, which Secretary Blinken also mentioned, free and open sea, and must follow the legal procedure. He made it very clear. And none of these are spoken without having consulted each other, particularly with your partners. And United Nations in one place where the diplomats must have burnt midnight oil for everybody's statement what is to be said on that, particularly the Quad countries. So I think that it's a very good beginning, and I think that I'm sure that it's not going to be left at that, and it will be taken to various other subsections and subsections of those. You will see that there may be a joint working groups at the level of UN where people will start acting on those 4 or 5 points. If there are disagreements, it can be brought to light that so-and-so has a disagreement. It will come out in the open. You cannot do anything in the hiding. Right now, one country is being opaque about everything that it does. Now, This is going to force them to actually come out in the open, And my own personal view is that UNCLOS also needs a review.
Sure.
That's all I will say.
Absolutely. Abhijit?
Well, I'm just going to say that, when it comes to maritime security, I think it's really important for us to take a real hard look at what the problems are. I think that, and this is my sort of considered opinion on this, that I don't think it's just suffice. It will just suffice for us to sort of talk a big game about maritime security, to say that we're talking about it in a holistic sense, because really the problems in the maritime domain are all too well known. I think what the ambassador said is exactly where we've got to be looking at, is that this is extremely capital intensive, and instead of just bringing out the challenges, emphasizing what needs to be done, we've got to make the investments. Let's remember that in the past, India and a couple of other countries have often spoken in a loud voice about what the problems in the maritime domain are. And I'm not talking about the contentious issues of strategic balance of power, but I'm really talking about non-traditional security issues. But on issues of governance, there still are big disagreements, and there are big areas of contestation. I think it's good to put the problem front and center, but I think it's equally important for us to recognize where the challenges lie. Unless we don't have consensus on some of those areas, including areas where India does not agree with some of the big players in the maritime domain, I don't think we are going to make concrete movement forward. I think it's incumbent upon us to look at what does not work, rather than just look at this in a big, holistic frame and say that if we show leadership, we are eventually going to solve this. Leadership is not going to solve it. Consensus will solve it. It's empathy for the other side that's going to, for other players and other partners, other countries, that's really going to solve this. So that's the way forward in my view.
Absolutely. And Ambassador, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
And, when you look at this meeting of the Security Council, one of the things that comes to your mind straight away is that although carried out under the simple ideas of international peace and security, it actually ended up being a meeting of the UNODC, which is looking at crimes on high seas, whether it's narco trafficking or it's smuggling or piracy, this, that. Now, on those, I think ways forward can be found, because those are areas, wicked as some of them may be, they are areas on which big powers will want to agree, and there are various reasons. Institutional arrangements need to be made to take those forward. Abhijit as well as Admiral have very kindly, focused on these things. That's important. As far as the much bigger thing is concerned, the question of freedom of navigation, etc. Look, let's look at history. Most of us have grown up on the history that the British Empire guaranteed the freedom of the seas. After that came the successor. They kept guaranteeing for the last 70 years. Now there's a challenge. I'm afraid it's not such a simple matter, even for the fellows who are sitting in Diego Garcia. It isn't such a simple matter, because there is a challenge, not just by one country. There was a challenge by one country earlier also. Now there are at least two, and there are at least two players, Japan, India, etc., who are players. They're not challenging anyone. But, they are there. We need to understand this. So, there's a comprehensive discussion. On some elements, things will go forward. As regards UNCLOS is concerned, Admiral Saab, of course, you should have a look at it, but first you should ratify it. Then, when you are inside the tent, you can ask for its amendments. But, asking for amendments of things without being inside the tent is the usual standard ploy of big boys. And I think we should understand where we stand on this particular game. This is a very good effort on our part, a good thing we brought it to the fore. But we should also remember that the United Nations Security Council, given the state of play and the fact that we are not a permanent member, given its power play, I personally believe very strongly its mandate should be kept tightly restricted to international peace and security. We should be mindful of this particular fact. Very often, in terms of conversations, sometimes these things happen. And I think that's important. So I see this as a very positive and a good mood, and I see that some things will go forward. And I'm glad that the Honorable Prime Minister led it. I want to say something. The Honorable Prime Minister's chairing of the session, the fact that there were other heads of state and government there, this is something which is particularly important for what he has been saying and what we from India have been saying for a long time. This body needs institutional reform. It needs to reflect contemporary reality. The presence of all those heads of state and government reflected the contemporary reality and India's place in the global high table stakes. And that was important. I think that is the big point that was made and made very well.
Absolutely. All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. Well, what's coming out of this discussion is that India has taken up a crucial issue at the UNSC. Maritime cooperation has now become more important than ever. It is the currency of the day and what keeps the economy going. There is no doubt there is a Chinese challenge, but non-traditional security, open sea lanes, tackling pirates and drug traffickers is also an important point or an important aspect of maritime security. Yes, there are security concerns, but what the world is most interested in is safeguarding business interests. India has to remain engaged in the maritime domain and be on top of the food chain when it comes to the Indian Ocean region. There is now growing recognition of India's rising prowess. The fact that the Prime Minister of Vietnam and presidents of Russia and Kenya were part of the discussion is a fact that the world is taking note of what India has to say. Well, before I go, let me once again inform you about Bharata First Knowledge Center, and to celebrate India's fine performance at the Olympics and the upcoming Independence Day, we at Bharata First have come up with an exciting offer for the Knowledge Center. The Bharata First Knowledge Center is your one-stop destination for all your competitive exams preparation. Go to kc.bharatafirst.com for more details. Use the coupon code FREEDOM30 for a great discount. Hundreds are thoroughly enjoying this whole new learning experience. Make sure that you don't miss out. Be a part of this amazing journey today. Also, please like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and then share the content as well. You can also subscribe to our newsletter for some incisive content. The Bharata First team runs several quizzes. Please participate in them. If you like our content, do keep it alive by making a small contribution. All this information along with some must-see recommendations are in the description of the video. Please go through it. That's it from me. See you again next time.